Hello everyone, my name is Emily, and I am 29 years old. I currently live in New York City with my husband and little son. On the surface, I may appear to have it all, a successful career, a loving family, and a stable life. However, beneath this facade lies a story I've never dared to share, a past filled with pain, mistakes, and unspoken desires that continue to haunt me. Today, I choose to open up and reveal my journey, one marked by heartbreak, resilience, and growth. This is not just a recounting of past events, but also a confrontation with my inner self, the mistakes that left scars and the lessons learned through struggle. I am not seeking pity or forgiveness, rather, hope to bring a sense of understanding and solace to those who listen. If you're willing, join me as I unravel a narrative I've kept hidden, a story for which I am still learning to forgive myself. My childhood began with a tragedy, an indelible wound that has shaped my entire life. It was the year I turned 7, an innocent child who believed the world was full of love and wonder. My family, my father, mother, 4-year-old brother, and I decided to take a trip to a small village outside the city. What seemed like a typical family outing turned out to be our last one together. I vividly remember the soft sunlight streaming through the car window that day, my brother's joyful laughter as he shared his innocent stories, and my mother's warm gaze as she looked at us. My father, who was driving, occasionally smiled at our jokes, his hands steady on the wheel. I felt an overwhelming sense of safety, believing nothing could harm us. But life is unpredictable. On the way back, everything changed. I remember the sound of screeching brakes, the thunderous clash of metal, and then darkness. When I woke up, the antiseptic scent of the hospital filled my nostrils, and the cold, white light blinded me. A nurse looked at me with eyes full of sympathy. I didn't yet understand what had happened, but soon the truth unraveled. My parents and younger brother hadn't survived the accident. The doctor explained their passing gently, but his words shattered my world. I felt utterly empty, as if something vital had been ripped away forever. At that moment, I didn't fully comprehend loss. I just felt an inexplicable void. It wasn't until I returned to our home, once filled with laughter and love, that the reality sank in. The house was now cold and eerily silent. No mother to greet me at the door, no little brother eager to show me his drawings, and no father reading in his favorite chair each evening. The warm, lively home I once knew had become a place of sorrow. I lay awake at night, staring at the black ceiling, understanding for the first time that life as I knew it had changed forever. From that point on, my childhood was no longer a carefree journey, but a long, lonely path overshadowed by unrelenting grief. After the accident, my grandparents took me in and moved me to their small apartment in the heart of the city. Though the flat was modest, it was filled with warmth. My grandfather played classical music on the radio, and the scent of chamomile tea brewed every morning by my grandmother created a comforting atmosphere. They did everything they could to fill my life with love and care. My grandfather shared stories from his childhood, and my grandmother knitted the coziest sweaters to keep me warm during harsh winters. Despite their efforts, they couldn't fill the void left in my heart. Their love was like a soothing balm on a deep wound, but the wound never truly healed. I had lost more than just my family. I had lost my belief in the world's safety. Loneliness became a constant companion, etched into my spirit. Some nights, as I lay in bed staring at the faint glow of city lights through the small window, I questioned why I was the one who survived. Was it a gift, a second chance at life? Or was it a punishment, forcing me to carry the weight of grief and emptiness? These unanswered questions tormented me, making me feel like a stranger in my own life. Though my grandparents tried to give me a sense of normalcy, I often felt adrift, disconnected from the people and places around me. My life seemed to have been stolen from me in an instant, leaving behind a painful journey I had no choice but to endure. As the years passed, I grew older, masking my pain with a facade of strength. People around me described me as resilient and independent, unaware of the fractures within. Beneath the surface, I was still the little girl grappling with loss, trying to navigate a world that felt both foreign and unkind. When I reached adulthood, I realized I couldn't remain under my grandparents' protection forever. I needed to forge my own path, no matter how daunting it seemed. After much contemplation, I decided to apply to Columbia University, one of the most prestigious institutions in the country. It wasn't an easy decision. I had no friends there, no familiar faces to rely on, and the academic environment was known for its rigor. Yet, I refused to back down. This wasn't just about getting an education. It was a declaration to myself that I could rise above my circumstances. The first days at university were challenging. I felt lost among the crowds of students in bustling hallways, and each evening I returned to my small dorm room feeling isolated and overwhelmed. But instead of letting loneliness consume me, I turned it into determination. Every exam I passed, every project I completed became a small victory, a reminder that I was capable of building a future unburdened by my past. It was during this time that I met Andrew, a fellow student who immediately caught my attention. He was tall, confident, and had a spark in his eyes that drew people in. But it wasn't just his looks that captivated me, it was his intellect and poise. Andrew had a way of making everyone feel heard, offering thoughtful insights during discussions. At first, we were just friends, bonding over group projects and late-night study sessions. He often helped me with challenging problems, and his encouragement became a source of strength during my darkest moments. Andrew was incredibly patient as he explained difficult concepts to me, his eyes lighting up with delight when I finally understood. His enthusiasm and calm demeanor drew me in, and I began to look forward to our study sessions and conversations. One day, I noticed my heart would race whenever I saw him. It was a strange, bittersweet feeling, exciting and intimidating all at once. Unsure of Andrew's feelings, I chose to keep my emotions to myself, allowing our connection to remain at the level of friendship. Our dynamic might have stayed that way, but an unexpected event changed everything. One afternoon, while sitting with my grandmother in our tiny kitchen, she looked at me with a sly yet concerned expression and asked, "Emily, do you have a boyfriend? You're a grown woman now. It's something you should think about." Caught off guard, I didn't know how to respond. I didn't want to disappoint her, yet I had no significant other to mention. In my confusion, Andrew's name slipped out. My grandmother's eyes lit up with excitement, and she immediately insisted on meeting him. Flustered, I reluctantly approached Andrew, my cheeks burning as I explained the situation. "Can you help me with something? I told my grandmother you're my boyfriend, and now she wants to meet you." To my surprise, Andrew simply laughed. "As long as you don't expect Oscar-worthy acting, I'm happy to help," he teased. And so, the plan was set. Andrew came to my home with his usual easygoing charm, impressing my grandmother with every word and action. What startled me most was how genuine he seemed. As I sat beside him, pretending we were a couple, a warmth blossomed in my chest that I couldn't ignore. After the visit, Andrew gave me a playful smile. "I think your grandmother really likes me," he said. I could only smile back, unable to find the right words. From that day on, our relationship subtly shifted. Without needing to say anything, I felt an unspoken bond growing between us, one that was impossible to ignore. Not long after, Andrew invited me to a small, cozy cafe. The warm yellow lighting and vintage wooden tables created an intimate atmosphere. We shared a couple of glasses of wine, talking as usual, but this time, there was an undercurrent of something deeper. Andrew's smile carried a new intensity, and his gaze lingered a little longer than before, making my heart race. After dinner, instead of taking me home, he suggested we go somewhere else. "Consider it my way of thanking you for letting me meet your grandmother," he joked. I didn't think much of it and agreed. We arrived at a quaint motel with dim lighting that felt both warm and private. What happened next was a step into uncharted territory for me, a moment that defied explanation and left me questioning everything. That night marked the beginning of a complicated and undefined relationship with Andrew. We weren't lovers in the traditional sense. He never confessed love, and I never had the courage to ask. Yet, every glance, every smile, and every whispered word from him drew me in. Andrew was magnetic, a man of contradictions, charming and enigmatic. Being near him felt like standing too close to a flame, exhilarating yet dangerous. As the years went on, our relationship remained an undefined whirlwind. I lived in a constant state of conflict, captivated by Andrew, but yearning for something more stable. Then one day, I met Michael. Michael was the opposite of Andrew in every way. He was compassionate, thoughtful, and grounded in his beliefs. His calm presence brought a tranquility to my life that I had never known before. Unlike Andrew, Michael never rushed me or pressured me. He respected every part of who I was, including the scars and vulnerabilities I had long hidden from the world. After several months of knowing each other, Michael proposed. It wasn't a grand gesture with flowers and fanfare, but it was heartfelt and sincere. "I want to build a life with you," he said. "A life where you'll never feel alone again." His words brought tears to my eyes because they were everything I had secretly longed to hear. Our wedding was simple but beautiful. Standing at the altar in a white dress, with flickering candles and soft music in the background, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. As we exchanged vows, I truly believed I was stepping into a new chapter of my life, one filled with love, stability, and hope. But life is rarely so straightforward. Andrew reappeared unexpectedly when I returned to work, like a ghost from my past. At first, it was casual. A brief conversation in the hallway, a glance that lingered a little too long. But soon, the encounters became more frequent. His words were always carefully chosen, his tone deceptively innocent, yet they stirred memories I was desperate to forget. I tried to resist, immersing myself in my work and avoiding him as much as possible. Yet, every time Andrew spoke to me, his voice would pull me back into the emotional chaos I thought I had left behind. Despite my efforts, the boundaries I had set for myself began to crumble. In one unguarded moment, after a few glasses of wine and a fleeting lapse in judgment, I crossed a line I swore I never would. That night, I betrayed the vows I had made to Michael. The guilt was immediate and overwhelming, but the pull of my unresolved feelings for Andrew had been too strong. For the first time in my marriage, I felt utterly lost, torn between the life I had built with Michael and the unresolved connection I shared with Andrew. As I navigated the aftermath, I realized that my choices had consequences not just for me, but for everyone involved. The weight of my actions served as a harsh reminder of the importance of boundaries, honesty, and the strength to face difficult emotions head-on. As I sat in reflection, overwhelmed by the magnitude of my choices, I couldn't help but feel trapped in a web of emotions I had woven for myself. Andrew's presence evoked deep, inexplicable feelings within me, a magnetic pull that defied logic and reason. While I cherished my husband, Michael, and our life together, Andrew represented a dangerous allure that was impossible to ignore. He seemed to unlock a part of me I barely understood, and with every encounter, I felt myself slipping further from the life I had worked so hard to build. When our child was born, I should have felt complete. Looking into my son's innocent eyes, I saw the embodiment of love and purity, a part of Michael and a reflection of the family we had created. But instead of joy, I felt a crushing weight of shame. I had betrayed the man who had given me everything I longed for: love, stability, and a home. The guilt clawed at me, especially during quiet moments when Michael held our child with tenderness, his eyes brimming with pride and devotion. In those moments, I felt like an outsider in my own family, burdened by secrets that could destroy everything. I tried to distance myself from Andrew, convincing myself that breaking all ties would end the cycle of temptation. Yet, the reality was far more complicated. Andrew's presence lingered like a shadow, and even the briefest encounter reignited emotions I struggled to suppress. Each glance, each whispered word, reminded me of a connection I couldn't fully explain or escape. It wasn't just desire, it was something deeper, a bond that seemed to transcend logic, but tethered me to a world of conflict and regret. Attending church with Michael became an exercise in internal torment. As he prayed, his reverence and faith unshaken, I felt the weight of my unworthiness pressing down on me. The beautiful light streaming through the stained glass windows seemed to expose the darkest corners of my soul. I knelt beside him, clasping my hands in prayer, silently begging for forgiveness. But my pleas felt hollow, overshadowed by the knowledge that I continued to make the same mistakes. Long, sleepless nights became my norm. I would lie awake in the dark, the thought of confessing everything to Michael gnawing at me. I imagined his face, the pain and betrayal that would replace the love and trust he had always shown me. I couldn't bear the thought of losing him or fracturing the family we had built. My fear kept me silent, convincing myself that I could atone through love and devotion as a wife and mother. But deep down, I knew these efforts were mere patches on a wound that continued to fester. The internal battle between redemption and secrecy consumed me. Each time I resolved to put an end to my struggles, Andrew's presence shattered my resolve. He wasn't just a man I was drawn to, he represented something unfinished, a part of my life I couldn't fully let go of. And yet, every step deeper into this forbidden connection pulled me further from the life I truly wanted. As I sit here now, reflecting on my journey, I realize that my life has been shaped by a series of poor decisions and weaknesses I failed to overcome. I love my husband and child more than words can express, but love alone hasn't been enough to erase the memories of Andrew. They linger like unhealed wounds, a reminder of my mistakes and the complexity of human emotions. This is my confession, not to seek forgiveness, but to confront the truth of who I am. Writing these words is a step toward facing myself, acknowledging my flaws, and beginning the journey of redemption for my family and, most importantly, for myself. Sharing this story has allowed me to unburden some of the weight I've carried, and for that, I am deeply grateful. To everyone who has listened, thank you for giving me the space to open my heart. Life is a series of challenges, mistakes, and lessons, but understanding and empathy can help us move forward. I hope my story inspires others to confront their own truths, find strength in vulnerability, and seek peace in the journey ahead.